Welcome everybody to another episode of Flag Your Week. Joined today, I'm your main host, Rana, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Faith.
Hello.
And today we have a special and amazing guest speaker. I call him the idol of education. He knows everything about education. Joined today, our program manager at Akin Fadeyi Foundation, James Clovers. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm fine, Rena, thank you.
Today we are going to continue our last episode. If the Nigerian education system is scam, we're asking this question. Today we're going to talk about the Nigerian educational system because I do not know anything about it. Faith, we don't know anything about it. We need someone that actually knows what he's saying to actually explain, because the man was reading, the man was confused. So let's start the Nigerian educational system, because first of all, it's hard to find, because you keep saying new things that are being brought up, always new policies, but we don't know which one we're actually following. So we need an explanation of the Nigerian educational system. Proper educational system.
Thank you, Rena. Yeah, it's very important for an average Nigerian to know the system of education we are practicing, to also get to know a background of Nigerian education in total. Generally, education is a right for every child. And this is not an exclusion of Nigeria. It is guaranteed in the UN Declaration of Fundamental Human Rights in 1948. So what that means is that it is a right for every child globally. And again, that is also being emphasized by the Nigerian Constitution, where it has made provision of compulsory education and quality education for Nigerians. Now, the National Policy on Education also emphasizes this. And it has also made that provision of making sure that education is a right. UB Act also emphasizes that education is a right. Then generally when we're talking about SDGs, that's Sustainable Development Goals, it has also made provision that for us to be able to achieve development, then education is one of the goals for us to achieve. And that is goal number 4. And it said we should ensure inclusive, quality education is provided. Until that is achieved, that means we will not be able to achieve sustainable development goals. Now, this is very important. It's important we establish this background. Now, looking at the Nigerian education system generally, we have categories of education as provided by National Policy on Education. We have the basic education, we have the post-basic education, and we have tertiary education. Basic education is 9 years in Nigeria, 6 years in primary school, and then 3 years in junior secondary school. However, these are joined together. What this means is that you don't finish primary school and then you get a certificate. No, you are not certified after primary 6. You only get certification after you finish JS3. That means you have completed basic education. That's what the new policy says. Now, after that, you now have 3 years of senior secondary education. Then after senior secondary education, you can now move into tertiary education. But even in senior secondary education, we have varying types of schools we access. We have senior secondary school, and we also have TVETs, that's technical and vocational education. Then when you go to tertiary institution, that's why we have universities, we have polytechnics, and we have colleges of education, whichever you are going to access. But again, it is important we note that in between senior secondary education and tertiary education, we also have what we call mass and nomadic education. Now, this mass and nomadic education is also to be able to address issues concerning people who, by age, are out of school. And by that standard, they will not be able to go back to either primary school or junior secondary school to access education. And also, that also takes care of adults who have not had access to education. However, at this level, they need education. So mass education takes care of that. Then nomadic education takes care of nomads. And of course, that is their lifestyle. They take care of animals. But again, Sustainable Development Goals say every child must have education. And the UN Declaration also said every child must have education.
Okay, sir. So I have a question, because Nigeria is very good at making policies. They have well when it comes to policies, we are probably one of the best at making policies on paper. Now I want to ask this question: we have these policies on paper because apart from this 9-3-4, the basic child you meet on the road will tell you 6 years of primary school, 3 years of junior secondary school,
Exactly.
3 years of senior secondary school, and 4 years of university. It is what you say is the basic education, but we don't know this. There's something lacking.
Exactly.
Because you keep saying basic, but does the basic Nigerian know this? Does the basic young Nigerian know this? Now you mentioned all this policy. I want to ask this question now: how do we move from policy on paper to enact this policy to be sure that every child has access to basic education?
To add to what she said,
Yes, please.
you said that we don't get certificate after primary school, we get it after junior secondary school. So I have a certificate. So I'm just getting to know that we don't get this. I'm just getting to know about this
That means
9-3 stuff.
because after
only
primary school you
63,
graduate
yeah.
and enter
We do
university and
graduation.
secondary school. It's
So-
a normal thing.
So actually, where is the point? What point, from what point do we say these policies will leave paper to get to it being actually practiced?
Good. Permit me to ask you, when did you finish primary school?
In Ewo.
I finished in like 2009, 2010.
2009, 2010.
2009, I think around that time.
Good. Actually, the UBA Act came into effect in 2004. However, implementation was not effective. But what I'm telling you is that what is obtainable now is that you don't get certified after completing primary school. Because basic education in Nigeria, according to laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is 9 years. And 9 years encompass 6 years of primary school and then 3 years of junior secondary education. It will interest you to also know that the policy made provision clearly that in the first year of primary education, you are taught in the language of the immediate environment. English language is only a subject. It is beginning from the 4th year that you are now taught in English, and then the language of the immediate environment becomes a subject. This policy made is very clear. So you don't get certification until after you have finished basic education. All right? So I can assure you that.
Sir, now I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Because we do have schools, primary schools that are giving certification. Once you are done with primary 5, primary 6, till now they are still doing graduation and giving you a certificate that you finished from that school. My question now is, how do we make this policy leave paper and implement them? How is the government making sure that as important as education is, there are policies or there are people in place to actually monitor the schools? Because to me, it feels like education is just someone has money and just build a school. That's how we
Build
go.
school and stop at primary.
That's
Stop at
how
primary
we
and then
go.
you now go to another school to
Yeah,
do the
with all
remaining
these
basic.
policies, how do we have people that are monitoring these policies to make sure that schools are actually, because to be very honest, we are meant to have school with basic, these are things we are meant to have, but we have schools that don't even do this. Proper schools they are collecting money. So how do we now make sure, how does the government make sure that schools are actually doing the right thing?
And putting in line with the free education. Because we're paying for the basic education that is meant to be free according to the law.
Lovely. Rena, good question. Faith, thank you for that question. You see, that a law is violated does not mean that the law is not there. Okay? So, I can simply say that those schools that still give certificates after completing primary school are actually violating the provision of the law. The law had made it very clear that you only obtain certification after completing basic education. Now, with this background I have given you, if a child completes primary school, has that child completed basic education?
Yeah.
So obviously, you are now with me that giving that child a certification is a violation of the law.
Okay.
All right? Now, talking about free education, then people are paying. Now, generally, the law has made it very clear, especially the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as well as the UBA Act. The UBA Act has made it very clear that federal government's role in providing basic education is purely that of assistance. So it assists the states and the local government. In other words, it is saying that it rests on the shoulders of states and local governments to provide basic education. And that's why if you go into details of the provision of the law, it has made it very clear that the funding of basic education is 2% of the consolidated fund that accrue to federal government. But states access this fund from UBEC. However, for each state to access that fund, whatever investment they want to make in basic education for that year, they must be able to pay up to 50%, which is counterpart funding. All right? So why is federal government coming in? It's for the purpose of uniformity, to ensure that, okay, being in the same country, there's this uniformity. However, people access basic education in both public and private schools. If you go to a private school, it's a business setting.
Yes.
So you pay.
Yes. Okay.
But in a public school, it's
So
free.
I have a question I want to ask, because I have a problem with that, but we're going to discuss that shortly after the break.
Hello, with everybody for you. Adijọ́ ṣe ṣe pẹ̀lẹ́ o, mo ti sọ fún wọn tẹ́lẹ̀ o. Bẹ́lẹ̀ o, deliver like I get bẹ́lẹ̀ o. Dem say I dey go sẹ́lẹ̀ o, dem say I dey go sẹ́lẹ̀ o. Destiny too fortuna, I go make you jo dada. Ṣé you get the power? Sweetie pasi amala ketu, ṣìnṣìn kagawa. Jésù Kristi lọ́ba wa, God dem falling yakata. You know I see sabi girl dey do. Only reason why them they call me Yolo. While you be fin, I'm still leading, kill anything. I know fitness. You know go fit in my shoes. High fashion, Jimmy choose. Wanna sip some gin and juice tomorrow? It's beautiful fortuna. I go make you Joe Dada. Say you get the power. Sweetie pasi amala ketu. Shinji kagawa. Jesu Christi lobawa. God them falling yakata. You know I see sabi girl they do. Hey.
Welcome back, guys. We're back from the break, and we're still on today's topic. Is the Nigerian educational system is scam? How do we move the Nigerian education system from policy?
Alright. Rena, thank you. It's like you have, you've asked 1,000 questions in one statement. I will try to address as much as I can. Let me first of all go quickly to the question relating to quality. Matching up the quality of public education as well, and public schools as well as those of the private schools. Rena, I can tell you with confidence that the quality of teachers we have in private schools in some places are not even comparable to what is obtainable in public. What we have in public schools is not even comparable to what we have in private schools. There is a standard. Nigerian policy on education have made it very clear that for you to be a teacher, you must have a minimum of NC. That is what makes you a teacher. And again, it has gone ahead to indicate that for you, when you even have minimum of NC, you must be a registered teacher with Teachers Registration Council and the license.
What is NCE? Because
National Certificate of Education.
Okay, so we have, again, these policies are good on paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we see the population of teachers that are coppers. They don't have NCE.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to say.
In government schools.
Let's not leave those other responses with questions we need to respond to. One of the major problems we have in education that affects quality is actually monitoring. So I can tell you for free that most of the teachers we have in public schools are actually graduates. And you go to private schools, you see NCE holders, you see diploma holders. All right? Because the businessman is trying to cut costs, he brings people who would not demand higher. However, you go to a public school, you discover that the people, based on the standard of education in the country, the minimum they have is a degree, graduates. Yet, a child passes through public school, but has less quality education than a child that passed through private school.
Sorry.
Sir, I
So
have
the
a
gap-
In regards to
problem.
that,
I want to ask you a question. When we talk about education, why do we only mention teachers and forget how important the equipment in schools
We were still
are?
going there.
exactly.
We were
That's-
still going
that's
there.
where I want to go.
And
Because
in times,
you say-
these teachers you are mentioning, we'll still come back to, because even the teachers in both private and I have a problem with them. I have a problem with those teachers. But sir, not worry, we'll still come to that. But I have a problem with that. But
But to
let's
say, when you say the teachers in private and teachers in government, being educated, having certificates, being graduates, apart from that, me personally, I won't take my child to a public school. Public school are overpopulated. The teachers don't even have time for the students in that school. In private school, I can monitor the growth of my child. I can say, okay, my child is not doing well. My child has dropped in performance, and I can go and question the teacher, like, what's going on? What's my child? Like the open days in private school,
it's easier to
where
get
you
lost
go,
as
you
a
go
child
to
in a-
school.
in a
Yes, you
public
go to
school.
school. You go and meet with the teacher. You see your
Yeah,
children.
you
grades.
only
I don't
helped
see that
me in
public
answering
school.
this question.
No, sir,
I've done this once. I've done this once.
So the whole essence is that you see, we move step by step.
I want to point
Like she has mentioned, we also talk about equipment. But again, the human factor is one that coordinates all this
So I want
equipment.
to ask you a question. You're saying step by step. As a country like Nigeria, don't you think that is a problem? Saying step by step. A country like Nigeria is saying step by step.
No.
In the last week, I mentioned that
Get the
Nigeria
point?
is not even top 10 in
Get the
education
point? What I was
in
saying is
Africa.
responding to the questions you raised, we move
Okay,
step by step. Alright? Yes, because I needed to talk about the human factor and then move to equipment and the other factors that affect the quality
Let's
of
go
education.
there.
For me
Let's
personally,
not-
I feel.
But again, let's talk about
I'm sorry.
the
But
overpopulation.
personally, I feel that teachers in private school, in my opinion, private school I've seen, are more educated or are more qualified than those I would see in public school. Because I feel like they are more passion driven.
Yeah.
If we're talking about
And I
them
also agree
personally,
with you. Now
they're more
let me
passion
give
driven
you.
with their job than but people will government come and parents then come and beat you and shout and talk to maybe the few first people you've got. The class you see over 100 people in a class.
Great. Now this is also another factor. Huh? You see, generally public school is free. And when it is free, it means everyone can access it. Private schools are not free. The businessman that set the school is profit oriented. It means only those who can who can afford what he charges that access that school. And so it's easier to meet up with standard. Now, there's also this law that said you cannot deny a child access to education. So it means in public school, there's no way you will tell a child to go back home because your class is free. What is expected of you is to rather expand the class, get more classes. Don't ask the child to go to school because it's a violation of that child's right to access education. But a private school is not, quote unquote, bounded by that. Alright? So these are some of the reasons why you see the public schools are overpopulated and the private schools meet up with standard. But again, the National Policy on Education has made provision that the ratio, teacher-student ratio in Nigeria should be 1:35. What that means, a teacher is supposed to attend to 35 children. That is the policy. But again, because we have infrastructure dearth in education, you discover that we don't meet up to that.
Definitely, we've learned so much today on today's topic. Is the Nigerian educational system is calm, and we'll be back after the break. Please don't go. Welcome back, guys, to my favorite segment, me and Faith's favorite segment, Flag Your Week,
At least,
where
at
we
least
flag what
mention
happened
it
to
today.
us in the week. Sir, this is our segment where we talk about all the things that this country wants to frustrate us with. Just pour out your anger here, rants. Do you have anything to flag? What happened?
Rena, just tell me to pour my anger on you.
No, just rant it. Right
Yes.
On your shoulder to lean on.
She actually is one that frustrated me.
What did she do?
So that's it. Now, you see, I saw Rena yesterday. And I was like, the last time I saw her was on Wednesday or Thursday last week?
Friday. Okay,
Friday?
you know.
No.
Either Thursday or Friday.
Wednesday.
Or Wednesday. Wednesday last week.
Wednesday.
Only for me to be told that she was in the office on Friday. I mean, she actually frustrated me. But again, very importantly, being someone new, I've actually been taking like 3-4 drops to get to the office. Guess what? It was just beside me. Just that I didn't ask questions. But when I asked questions yesterday, I discovered that I can only actually take 2 drops and I'm in the office.
Oh God, so you're just
Are you
suffering
making
yourself.
Yes.
Oh God, ignorance. That's how yesterday I learned how to close the. I didn't know like you could lock.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You just don't know that around. I didn't even know that
Like
you
if you
don't
press
press
it, you locked it. I did not know.
I didn't know. That's amazing. See, I want to flag something, but thinking about flagging it, I'm getting anxious already. And this is going to go so many places, so I think I'll just keep my flagging to myself.
Flag
I
it.
don't want to start crying on
Flag
TV,
it.
but I'm already shaking. Then I just flag the week.
My week was fine now. Just this new government and their new policies, fuel subsidy, now they've hiked electricity. All I have to say is let the poor breathe in this country. Let the poor breathe because again, we're the poverty capital of the world. I'll keep saying it because it's when you see people talk on Twitter, arguing about things like 20k spaghetti, 17k spaghetti. They need to go and touch grass and see what people are going through in this country. So you're talking about 17k spaghetti for dates. Where should we go for dates? Should we go for expensive restaurants? Should we go to buy ice cream?
When they're actually
people are suffering.
issues that are happening.
There are so many people that can't even go. Like,
I get you.
Rena, I really wish.
Things are hyping.
I really wish you'd
Things are
been
going
to
up
the northeastern part of this country. You are already given a good experience. I mean, I can't imagine if you had been to northeast.
I've not even been there and I'm saying touch grass. Like, I'm not even
the crisis prone northeast.
Really?
Probably you just be weeping. But again, thank you for really flagging that. It's really an issue.
We should not forget that we should always be safe. As much as things are trying to hide, we're trying to look for the easiest means to survive. Just try to be safe. A lot of one chances out there, a lot of blended things out there. And you shouldn't forget that. Use the hashtag. A lot of things are disturbing us nowadays in this country. A lot of things are bothering us. Don't forget to use the hashtag on all our social media handle. Hashtag flag your week on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I know I say it every day, but you get the vibe. Just use it. Tell us what's bothering you, and we'll sure to help you rant your rant here. We're here, show that to Lena.
And don't forget, if you know any child that is being denied the basic right to education, please report on the Flaggy app. Parent caregivers can be sanctioned if you deny a child the basic right to education. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Flag Your Week. We can't wait to see you next week. Don't forget, Flag Your Week. Bye!
Bye.